Video 18.1, Learning Norms. Sir Francis Galton, who was an important statistician, psychologist toward the end of the 19th century, began studying composite photographs in 1878. You may remember that photographic negatives in the 19th century were often on glass. You could take portraits of people, in this case, portraits of criminals in prisons, and you could overlay the glass plates on top of each other and get a picture of a composite photo. Sometimes this works very smoothly. For example, the face on the right looks like almost a normal portrait, but it's actually several negatives of several different criminals superimposed on top of each other to create a kind of average face. If we look on the left, it's a little easier to detect that there are different photographs involved. And for the middle two photographs, it's actually quite easy to see that. So for example, in the third one from the left, one convict has his hands in the photo where the others don't. Why was Galton doing this? Well, as I mentioned, he was a statistician. He was interested in the average look of a criminal, hoping that one could detect a criminal by certain traits in their face. It turned out not to be true. There's no criminal face. But Galton did notice something that was odd and something that actually holds up very well in an endless variety of similar experiments. And that is that the composite face tends to be more attractive than any of the single faces that went into it. And this is very surprising and even seemingly wrong for many people. You know, we tend to think that something attractive, something beautiful, has to be exceptional, whereas psychologically, it is often more close to the norm. So let's look at a modern psychological experiment. Here we have three faces, A in the upper left, B in the lower left, and C in the middle right. The face A is an average of many female faces with the average of the shading, the light and dark of those faces. B is an average of the structural features, that is the shape, the individual shapes of all those features averaged out. And then C on the right is the average of both the light and dark and the structural features. For most viewers, face C is judged to be the most attractive of the three. Now with computers and the internet, people have made almost a parlor game out of this. So for example, here are average faces of young men from several different countries. And in fact, on the internet, you can find the average for almost any country, for a particular university, for a particular city. Here are female average faces. I think it's fair to say that in every case, the averages are attractive. They're good looking. Why would this be so? Well, one idea is that as we go through life, we have many experiences, and the brain tends to average them as a means of learning what is unusual, because the unusual can sometimes be dangerous or unpleasant. So when we meet an attractive face and we compare it to the average faces that we've built up in our memories, if there's a good match, in a way we think, that's nice, nothing wrong there, nothing to worry about. Could this be true for music? The researcher James Symons, in his dissertation, studied schemas in music and studied the idea of composite schemas. If we look at the top system, what we see here are several examples of the Prinner schema from actual pieces of Neapolitan music, Neapolitan solfeggi. And he's notated 4 of them simultaneously. In his statistical research, he looked at 300 Neapolitan solfeggi and did the statistics on that. But just for presentation here, we'll show 4 of them simultaneously, and we can listen to them. It's a bit of a jumble, but you can hear something of the outlines of the Prinner schema. Now, if we consider a large number of such passages of music and make louder and darker the notes that recur most frequently, we begin to see the outlines of the basic schema emerge from the background of all the individual notes. And then if we raise the bar further and say only the very most frequently recurring pitches can sound and all the rest have to become silent, we get something very close to an idealized Prinner schema. So this is what's called statistical learning. We learn from many, many examples that we've entered into our memories and that our brains have compared and judged for similarity. It's an acquired sensitivity to norms. Now, as mentioned, the recognition of something that matches norms can be pleasurable. Imagine that this young lady has the Prinner schema in her mind. No one taught it to her, but she's heard a lot of 18th century music, and she's come to learn what sounds normal and what doesn't. So let's imagine that she's listening to a sonata from 1762 by l'Abbé Le Fils, a composer in Paris. She hears something that matches the Prinner schema. So even though the exemplars, the individual examples by l'Abbé Le Fils were complex and very ornate, our listener was able to match them to a learned norm and to derive pleasure from the act of recognition.